We're very fortunate today to have Elle Davidson joining us from GHD, who's going to talk to us. She's going to give us a case study around Aboriginal culture and the built environment. And let's give Elle a big round of applause. Thank you very much.
My name's Elle Davidson. I am GHD's Indigenous Engagement Leader. I am a Balangara woman from the East Kimberley, so a very long way from home, and very much appreciate being here on Gadigal land. So to start with, now that you know who I am, it's not a stranger asking you to do this, and only participate if you feel comfortable. But I'd just like you to all shut your eyes. We're going to do a very short visualization exercise. So just imagine that you're waking up in a structure here on this country, on this land. And as you wake up, you can hear the birds chirping, and you're in a very kind of small little structure, and you kind of come out, you've been in that structure with your family, and as you come out, your extended family is all around you. So there's a little cluster of these shelters or these dwellings. And as you come out, you start interacting with your kind of extended family group. You're all outside and engaging and waking up. And if you're a male, you would be waking up with your brothers surrounding you, and if you're a female, you would be waking up with your sisters surrounding you. And as you all kind of wake up and come to, you realise that there's a bit of a billow of smoke happening over in the southeast from this location, and you realise, okay, there must be a big corroboree going on down there. We better get down there. So you start gathering a few things. You don't really need much. You don't need to pack a backpack, because on the way you can stop and pick some berries and get some breakfast and gather a couple of things for sustenance. And on your walk over to the Centennial Parkland, you start to see a number of other people and groups all kind of walking in the same direction towards that smoke that you've seen. And as you get closer to the lake and the parklands that we now call Centennial Parklands, you see a number of people gathering and hunting. There's turtles and kangaroo and big mob. They're all there gathering and getting what they need for their sustenance. So I'd just like you to open your eyes again, and just paying respect to the Gadigal people here of this country, and the way that they interacted with coastal people, and Centennial Parkland being a very important place for gathering in this kind of city and urban landscape, and a place that some of us would probably enjoy now. It was a place of sustenance and gathering and corroboree, because it was one of the only freshwater areas in the kind of Sydney area. So with that, we would like to pay our respects to the Gadigal people, their connection to country, their way of living in sync with country. And, I suppose in terms of setting that scene and thinking about Aboriginal people in the environment, we kind of, note that they probably did their 20 minutes of exercise to walk to the Centennial Parklands, and they're eating healthy, fresh food and able to interact and build community and connect with each other. And so I think, it's beyond the time or the content of my presentation this morning, but there is a lot for us to learn from Aboriginal people and culture, and we should feel really privileged that it is a rich history and culture for us to all embrace. So sort of moving on from that, I'm very mindful of my time. As you could probably tell already, I like to have a bit of a yarn. What I'd like to sort of talk about and touch on is cultural expressions and celebrations within the built environment, and how that can lead to wellbeing outcomes for all people. I found this quote about Aboriginal art, and I think that the context of the celebration of art in the built environment, as shown on this screen, kind of really highlights the importance and place that it has in our built environment. It's the multifaceted and often unquantifiable nature of many of these benefits was highlighted in evidence below. Pride, self-esteem, maintenance of culture, transmission of culture, intergenerational learning, meaningful activity, purposeful life, creative achievement, recognition from peers, recognition from national and international art media, provision of much of our nation's corporate identity, provision of Australia's great greatest cultural export and other social and spiritual benefit are difficult to quantify, but they should not be discounted even in the most rational market economies. This is an industry that cannot and should not simply be measured in statistical economic data. So what you can sort of see on this screen is a number of different ways that Aboriginal culture has been celebrated in the built environment. And I suppose I'm going to delve into a few more examples as we move forward, but I suppose this work and this space and the importance that Aboriginal culture being embedded into placemaking of our spaces and cities is such an important part of our reconciliation journey. I shared that I'm a Balangara woman from the East Kimberley. That's on my dad's side, also connected to the Bunabar people of the Fitzroy area. So all in the East Kimberley, very beautiful country, bit of a plug. Every Australian needs to go there. And on my mother's side, I'm a 7th generation descendant of Captain Bligh. So I have this really interesting cross section of a need to both honour the progress, if you could call it that, but the contemporary way that we interact with our cities and places, as well as honouring the history of my heritage on my dad's side as well. So I'm one of the only qualified Aboriginal town planners. I've been kind of working in the stakeholder engagement space for a little while, which has been amazing, really focusing on this cultural expression and celebration engagement at the moment. But it's been really great being here this morning and listening to people who really kind of, highlight the importance of our cities and places. And I really get the language. And so it's really a privilege to be here and speak to you all this morning. I just wanted to highlight and touch on Barangaroo. Now, does anybody know, just raise your hand if you know the meaning of Barangaroo or where that name came from. It's pretty good. It's great. Half of this room understands that Barangaroo was a Gamaragal woman from the north side of the city. So she was actually a wife to Bennelong. Who's heard of Bennelong? More people, awesome. So we're just raising a little bit more of that exposure in the room in terms of some of the Aboriginal people of this area when the British first came. So Barangaroo used to travel in her canoe across from the north side of the city and used to land in the kind of vicinity of where Barangaroo as a place is now located. So the opportunity, I suppose, for Barangaroo as a person to be highlighted in such a prominent place within our urban landscape is such an amazing expression of celebration and support and an educational awareness tool as well. It was great to see that half the room put their hand up when I asked that question, and now you can all put your hand up. So you're going away here with a deeper understanding of some of those people and connections to this country and to this land at the time of contact. There is a very large amount of money that is going to be invested into public art outcomes within the Barangaroo precinct, and a lot of them will have an Aboriginal cultural expression to them. So I suppose as our cities evolve and as we move forward, that opportunity to really highlight and provide exposure to things that you may not have learnt in school. I mean, for me as an Aboriginal woman growing up in a school in Mullumbimby, northern New South Wales, even there where there's a very strong culture, the Arakwal people have a very strong prominence within the community. And as you can imagine, the type of community means that people are a little bit more evolved in their awareness. But I still, as an Aboriginal person, sat there and probably got 2 or 3 lessons that actually gave exposure to Aboriginal culture and who we are, and mainly the perspective that it was an uncivilized people that walked around aimlessly, were nomadic, and didn't really have much direction. But as you can probably understand in terms of the visualization process that we just went through this morning, it was very highly evolved. The fact that you had had, a system and a kinship that allowed you to live with your brothers and, you as a female with your sisters, but then managing the way that those kinship structures worked. I mean, that's highly evolved to manage things like incest and all of the things that we need to be mindful of in terms of a social group. So, as soon as you start digging into some of these complexities, it's just an amazing, the deeper you go, the deeper you realize it is. And the more you start to challenge that notion of it being a nomadic society that walked around aimlessly. And a plug, if you have not read Bruce Pascoe's Dark Emu, I would highly recommend to sort of go into a little bit more detail around that. So I've got another example here of a mural that was done in the 80s in Victoria, in Northcote. So you can see it's a little bit drab, tired, but it is in a very prominent location within the urban landscape. And I suppose the importance of this is the way that it illustrates the surviving and resilient nature of the local people. So I've got a little quote here from some of the people who were involved in the project back in the 80s. And it says, as a public artwork, the Northcote Koori mural is continuously subject to the people's gaze. It challenges lingering colonialist notions about the loss of Southeast Aboriginal culture and acts as a reminder of the transformation of Southeast culture in response to the colonising process. So the opportunity, I suppose, for multiple people, like, I don't know, I would probably say thousands of people, to see this and to be challenged that, Aboriginal people don't just walk around with, something on their neck and something on their head, but the resilience of the community moving forward and that kind of contemporary expression of the community being celebrated in such a way is such an important kind of point of reference, I think, for the local community to really appreciate that always was, always will be, as Roderick spoke about this morning. And, Aboriginal people are alive, they're well, they're living in your communities, they have a strength and a richness to who they are and their identity. And I think it's coming to a point now, and I feel privileged to be part of a rise in people really looking to ways to incorporate and embed culture and what that means for us. I mentioned that, as an Aboriginal person, and as most people, I won't do a show of hands, but I imagine that it would be at least 3/4. The lack of awareness and education is the downfall of our system. It's this notion that needed to be reinforced, the concept of terra nullius, this kind of underlying sense of I don't know if it's denial, but more the fact that it's just a really difficult subject to touch on. I don't want to go into the depths about a treaty because we could be here for days. But the idea that, Aboriginal people are still not acknowledged here as sovereign people, and it's the only Commonwealth nation that doesn't have a treaty process. So I'll let you go and explore that in your own time. But I think artworks like this help to challenge people in that sense of, culture and people being in the past. There is a contemporary Aboriginal community, and the strength of that should not be misrepresented. So one example that I wanted to just touch on quickly was Yagan Square. So this is a brand new area that's been developed right next to the Perth Central Station. I went there for the first time and didn't really know the layers of cultural expression within the place. And I kind of just got a sense of, there was something really special about this. And I saw a statue of a Noongar man, and I was like, okay, there's layers to the cultural celebration here. But fortunately, I had the opportunity to go and meet with people from Landcorp, and the person who was there had actually worked on this project and unpacked some amazing layers to what they've done here. So the roof structure that you can sort of see that goes around is actually reflective of the way that waterways and the lakes within Noongar country used to form. The big screen that you can see with all of the sticks, there's actually 14 of those poles that represent 14 different Noongar relation or groups within the Noongar Nation. The space sort of underneath where all of the trees are, so they've got the tick for the shade, is a playscape for children, and that's actually replicates the local landform of the Noongar country. And also the tracks and the pathways that you can see connecting through the site is actually replicating the traditional kind of hunting and gathering pathways through Noongar country. And so you can see in a place like this, you've got these layers of opportunities in the design and the placemaking process to actually celebrate and highlight and promote the Noongar people, their connection and ongoing connection to country, and the importance of that being celebrated and shared. So I haven't got my first bell, but I did get my little 5-minute mark. So I suppose I really wanted to sort of just land this. I mean, 20 minutes isn't very long to speak on a topic that is very close to my heart. But, I think that it is important for us to think about the wellbeing outcomes that celebration of culture can lead to, and the reason why you're meeting here today. Vibrant places, the example that I just shared about Yagan Square, I remember when I was in that meeting about the kind of outcomes of that project, and the lady said, one of the best things that can happen was a couple of days after opening, somebody was heard, just interacting with the new space and said, I just can't remember what was here before. And that's true placemaking, for somebody just this sense of this was always how it was, this is always how it is and has been, and there's no kind of connection to the former, but this celebration of a place that is vibrant, has its own identity, and is very place-based and specific. Healthy places. So as I sort of mentioned and have touched upon in terms of the awareness and education of people generally within our Australian community, there is a need for these multiple touch points, for people to learn and progress on their learning journey. I've been involved in the reconciliation work at GHD for a number of years now, and the thing that I love the most is for people to just comment on the impact that learning has had on them and how they've evolved, and they feel more comfortable in conversations. They don't feel this sense of awkwardness when they have to broach a topic about, Australia Day or change the date, or, things that come up as our culture evolves, and they don't feel that sense of denial or shame. They feel empowered to have conversations because they feel a little bit more educated. They feel that it's okay to have a conversation. It's okay to understand that you might not know anything, and that's not actually an individual's problem. It's the problem of our education system, the history of this country. But I suppose the opportunity to create places that celebrate culture and provide talking points creates an opportunity for us to evolve and become a more healthy society. And connected communities, I mean, the idea of reconciliation, which is challenged by a lot of Aboriginal people, whether we should call it reconciliation, were we ever reconciled in the first place, is another thing not to talk about this morning. But, the idea that a place and the incorporation of culture and the celebration of culture can lead to more connected communities is something that I think we really do need to be mindful of, and that there is a lot of opportunity for this to be explored. Now, the Yagan Square example was the result of a very long process. It wasn't something that happened after one conversation. It's not something that we can just kind of go and listen to community and then leave and, go, oh, they spoke about the eagle, Bunjil, let's go and develop a whole shopping centre around that, because it might be on land that the Bunjil story is not relevant to. So the importance of that dialogue, that relationship building, that ongoing nature, that empowerment of the community to share their stories is a really important thing to keep in mind. Now, to close, because I'm not getting a bell, I'm getting 1 minute. I just have one last quote, and this is from Arts Victoria. There is now a well-established evidence base supporting the view that arts can make a vital contribution to our well-being. This can occur across a range of dimensions, from cultural to social and economic at an individual, community and broader society level. The arts have the potential to bridge our worlds, harness the wisdom of our different views, engage our imagination to explore new ways of thinking, and to create experiences that can be shared by all of the people in our community. So thank you very much.